So hello, my name is Ditta Rietuma and I'm from Baltic Sun Foundation.
What's it called?
Baltic Sun Foundation.
Okay.
I'm also economist and I degree from Stockholm University. And
so you must have enjoyed the discussion.
Oh, immensely, immensely. But you see, I'm working already with creation of next level. When this goes down, what will come? So I would really love to cooperate on that new level, because this is going down. Everybody knows that, yeah. So that we can keep the best of it in the next new era and get rid of all the bad, yeah. Just rational perspective, yeah.
Okay.
And the model that we are using is some kind of a sun. So we are using 14 rays in it, and every block is like a continent of competence. But to pick up just on economical issue here, it would be really, don't you think that it would be rational to create this, to start from another angle, to see this national perspective, to see the people in every nation, sort of, and to think about how they could have it good, yeah? And then we could go further and see how the banks have to be, and sort of all aspects of competence, yeah? Because right now it's somehow that is forgotten, that is, the whole discussion is in one little piece, and there is no sun of competence, there is no, all the other aspects are lacking. But the question would be, it appears, as we have studied now from the sun modeling, that we would need some kind of Bretton Woods too.
Yes, I would like to see something like that, but I don't foresee it in the near future or the foreseeable future, because you have to remember it took a Great Depression and a World War to get to the point where the world elite was willing to consider the Bretton Woods agreement. And these were people who were much smarter than the people running the world today.
Yeah, right.
So, therefore, I think we're very far from any kind of new international arrangement. And therefore, I think that progress, if it happens, is going to take place at the national and at best at the regional level.
That's what we're trying.
And you can see in Europe it can't even seem to take place at the regional level, because the regional authorities are as bad as the IMF or the other supranational authorities that we have now.
The schools have destroyed their thinking.
It's a very big question. I mean, and one that I have to deal with a lot in Washington, because you have this idea, the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung would be an example as well, I think, of organizations and foundations who believe that change will primarily take place at the international level. And I think that's true for environment, for example. You do have the Framework Convention on Climate Change, and you have, international organizations. But on economic issues, I don't think you're anywhere near that. I think that the supranational institutions that we have, like the IMF and the World Bank, have for 30, 40 years at least, have been taking the world in the wrong direction. 30 years at least.
But this guy was told that, yes, he agrees. Do you know this famous speech in Washington University? Have you seen that?
Who's this? Whose speech?
Dominic Strauss-Kahn.
Oh, yes.
You know, this 4th of April.
Well, he understood quite a bit.
For these 30 years, we did wrong things.
Yes, he understood that, but as you can see, even though he was the head of the managing director of the IMF, and he knew what was going on in Greece in particular was wrong, and he had a very strong interest in not having Greece blow up on his watch, because he was planning on running for president of France, and he still couldn't stop them.
Yeah.
Because
so
the
answer
G7
would be on the national level.
That's right.
That's what we see too.
Yeah.
And what we have to do, we have to start really printing our own money here.
Well,
what are the solutions
you
can
do
it
have
be?
your own money here.
Yeah, but we can't print it really as much as we need. We have to. Our central bank is not
Is
with
very
our
conservative.
government.
Yeah.
It's not in contact with our
Yes.
with our government. It's independent.
Yes.
It takes orders from the European Community, European
Yes.
Central Bank.
Yes.
And you also would sort of think that somehow that is the level where these conflicts have to be solved.
I think that is true. And if you look at South America, for example, which I spend most of my time on, and there's been Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, Bolivia, Ecuador, Uruguay, Paraguay. I mean, all of these countries have had really major changes and major improvements. And it's been done overwhelmingly at the national level with increasing regional cooperation. And they didn't get any help.
And whom would we cooperate with on the world level? Because somehow we have to make this an international arrangement that we are given sort of green light to have this right, sort of.
Well, I don't think so. I think that Latvia can do a lot by itself. I don't think. As I said in there, the only constraint for a country in terms of its economic policy is the balance of payments. If you make sure that you're not running a balance of payments problem, you don't have a balance of payments problem, balance of payments deficit that's unsustainable, then you can do whatever economic policies you want. It becomes an internal question.
So we could emit the amount of money we need, and invest in our own society as much as we need.
Of course.
And not take any of
you
these
would run into
big debts.
That's right. You don't have to borrow from abroad. I think that's true. Again, if the economy gets closer to full employment, then you would have to worry about inflation coming from money creation.
Yeah, of course.
But you're
big balancing in place.
But you're nowhere near that point right now.
Right. I was going to ask you, our finance minister, actually, I'm pretty much quoting him now, he says, well, in 2012, that's the last budget we have to consolidate, and then we will almost have a national celebration because of that, because it's the last consolidation and the money is not that big, and then everything's going to be just fine, right? Do you agree? Do you think it's going to be just fine after just one consolidation and one budget?
If we print our money,
no, I mean,
then it will be.
The budget deficit is not the most important question when it comes to growth or development.
Right.
So, all of the things being equal, sure, it's fine to have they're going for a 2.5%.
Right. No, but I guess the idea is that what they're saying is, all right, so this is the last consolidation, then we're pretty much going to join the Eurozone, and then everything's going to be just fine. But we know the Eurozone is actually growing really slowly, and we do know that probably doesn't mean that. Oh, the other argument obviously is that there's that investments are going to come in, but we already know what investments meant for us because we already had them coming in, right? So it's probably not going to be the kind of investments we really want.
So we need our own investments.
So I guess. So under the current policy, do you think that we're going to be growing really fast anytime soon?
It's tough to say. It really depends. You could have fast growth again if the whole European area recovers quickly, and you have a big increase in demand for exports, and you have, again, the money coming in the past. So it is possible. It doesn't look likely right now because the Eurozone authorities haven't resolved even the financial crisis, let alone the slowdown in their own economies. So right now, the external factors don't look that good. And that's what's really driving most of your growth right now.
Right, and that's the thing, because if there's any growth, then obviously the central bank and the government's going to say, okay, this is up to us, right, the growth, and if there's a slump, they'll say, oh, that's external, right, it's not because of us, right, but that doesn't really stand scrutiny, right, because either I guess.
No, the government can influence the economy through economic
No, obviously
policy.
it can. I mean, but
They should be held accountable.
yeah, exactly.
What is the way to make the central bank to account to the government? What is the legal procedure in this case? I don't know.
I don't know the laws here. But, you know, it's interesting. I mean, again, the independence of the central bank is a matter of degree, and it's not always the legal, the laws governing this central bank that determine how independent it is. For example, the Argentine central bank is formally, legally independent, but it's not at all. And the Brazilian central bank is formally not independent,
But it is.
but it runs the country.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you
The
see,
people make the difference, I bet.
the government's, so it has a lot to do with what, it really is the government. The government can, regardless of the legal structure, exert a lot of influence over the central bank.
Thanks so much for your time. I
Sure.
hope you get a meal now.
Right. I have just the very last question because you haven't
Is the
spoken
camera gonna
about.
still go?
Yeah, he's still asking.
Okay.
Yeah, because you haven't addressed that one. Well, the critics say because the example of Argentina is used very widely now in Latvia, but they say that right. Well, yeah, Argentina devalued and then had its growth, but it's because they had a huge manufacturing power, which we don't have in Latvia. So
Oh,
in
they
here-
say manufacturing because everybody
Right.
else was asking me whether it was everybody in the world thinks it was all grains,
Okay.
export of grains.
Well, but anyway, in that sense, but they're saying that here it's just
Well,
services.
I don't know about that. I mean, what percentage of this economy is manufacturing?
Here?
Not
Yeah.
much. It's all ruined
12.
systemically.
12.
Well, that's the same as the United States.
Right.
I mean,
Is it that bad now in the United
Yeah,
States too?
yeah,
Gosh. But it's quite recent. They had bigger before. It was double before, huh?
it was
Before they brought down Ford. And
Yeah, it was never. I mean, in recent history, I don't think it was much more than 18, but that was 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I think this economy. I mean, you have resources, you have some manufacturing,
yeah.
you have an educated population. You got all the potential.
we will overcome.
with the,
So basically saying this argument doesn't stand to scrutiny, right?
no, not at all.
Right.
It's macroeconomic policy that matters for Argentina. You know, where it would stand scrutiny would be like, if you were like Bolivia or an African country where you're really underdeveloped,
Right.
then you have to do a lot more than just get your macroeconomic policies right. And but here, this is a middle-income country. I think even the income level is probably at least as high as Argentina's was, and I'm sure it's higher.
But geopolitical
Than it-
situation
than it
is
was
absolutely
in-
horrifying.
in-
50 times smaller wages have our scientists than American. 50 times.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
And 17 times less than European average. That's where we are. Social economics.
That's a problem too. But anyway, yeah.
Geopolitics are really
Yeah.
terrible.
I think it's definitely possible for this country to grow very fast and move towards full employment if you had the right policies.
And does that involve devaluation still at some point, or
At some point it might, but it's nothing immediate. I mean, you
Right.
can have, you know, you're never going to have the kind of growth that South Korea or Taiwan had with an overvalued currency, or China.
Right.
All of those experiences, or Japan, they were all based on low-valued currencies. And even India now has become a fast-growing country, and it's partly because their currency is way lower than it used to be. And so it is an important policy. Yeah, so it will be over the intermediate to long run. But in the short run, you can still get around it some. I mean, Brazil increased their growth quite a bit. even with an overvalued currency, although it's hurting them. It's hurting their manufacturing. You could think of other examples, but mostly the examples of fast-growing economies in the last 50 years have not been, if they've been fixed exchange rates, it has been with the government intervening to maintain a lower exchange rate, not a higher one like here.
Okay, and the very last question on defaults, because recently, there was announced that the private bondholder is going to take a 50% haircut in Greece.
Yes.
And in Latvia it was said, in here, obviously you can't even talk about any kind of default because we had official lenders, meaning IMF and stuff, not a private one, so you can't even talk about default. But obviously we know that's not true because Argentina has defaulted on IMF debt as well.
No, they never defaulted on the IMF debt. No. They paid them off.
Oh, they did.
10 billion.
But do you think it's possible to default on IMF debt at all?
Yeah, in fact, the Argentines did do it temporarily in 2003. In September of 2003,
right.
The IMF was insisting on conditions that would have prevented their recovery or made it much more difficult, and the government refused. They were tough, and in September of 2003 they said, fine, we're not going to pay you. And the IMF backed down and just rolled over their debt.
And 10 billion, where did they take that?
Well, that was later, in 2005, I think.
When they had already fixed the economy.
Then they paid them off just to get rid of them forever.
Right.
They didn't want to have to.
And they emitted their own amounts also, yeah?
Well, they can't emit dollars in order to pay that. They
can convert their inner economy.
But you have to be able to buy the dollars.
Yeah. But when you produce values, then you buy dollars.
Yeah. No, well, part of it was, their foreign exchange that they accumulated through a trade surplus. But they also borrowed about $6 billion from Venezuela.
I see. That's
right.
That was part of the regional cooperation I was talking about.
And this follow-up to my question was do you think that that necessarily sends a bad signal? Defaulting on a debt, does it send a bad signal?
Well, it's not something you want to do, but Argentina didn't have any choice.
Right.
And I'm not recommending it, except for Greece, I would. I mean, the choice is always, look, there's several ways you can get rid of a debt problem. I mean, this isn't that relevant to Latvia because Latvia doesn't have a debt problem.
Right.
I mean, you got a relatively low debt and a low debt service.
Right.
Interest payments on debt are about 1.4, 1.5% of GDP. That's not a lot. That's what we have. We don't have much either.
Right.
And so I don't think there's any question about default. Certainly not on the public debt.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks
Sure.
so much.
Yeah.
And keep it with you, and let's make the new world beautiful.
Okay, thank you very much.
Here is all the information. Let us make it happen so the world is free.
Thank you.